What's going on, H-Town and Houston Rockets fans all over the world, non-Houston Rockets fans who may be joining us as well, who are just big NBA fans. Thanks so much for watching. This is Rockets Daily. My name is David Delano, and this is brought to you by Fan Arch. On this, our goal is simple: bring you the best Houston Rockets coverage that we possibly can each day. Want to be a platform and a voice for the fans, so go ahead and keep those comments coming. We're going to read each and every one of these, and we've got a lot to talk about today. Fred VanVleet, we've got coming up on the decision time for him, less than a week away. And depending on what happens there, or even if we, depending on what happens with VanVleet, obviously the big news that dropped on Sunday, Kevin Durant coming to the Houston Rockets. Rockets now, depending on your book, second or third best odds to win the NBA championship in 2026. But, of course, it is a team effort, so we're going to talk about some other possible holes and places that this roster can upgrade. And most exciting time of the season for a lot of teams in this offseason, as much as there's rumors and trades that you're hearing circulating all over the place. The NBA never fails to disappoint, as we had a shocking trade come in late Monday, early Tuesday, that we're going to go ahead and talk about as far as how does that affect the Houston Rockets, if at all. And also, as we look at free agency and potential trades, there's always some names that float out there that starting to be talked about to get some pretty big contracts on guys that anybody could have had. A lot of times that were on two-way deals in the G League, and then all of a sudden they get the right opportunity in the right situation, and then they're higher expectation, higher money players. Is there anybody like that the Houston Rockets may already have that's not being talked about that could potentially help this roster? So go ahead and thanks so much for spending some time with us, no matter where you are today. And first thing that we're going to go ahead and talk about on this episode of Rockets Daily is going to be Fred VanVleet. So, Fred VanVleet, right now, it's decision time coming up. The Houston Rockets and Fred, they have up until June 29th to make a decision. Obviously, Rockets fans know he's got a team option coming up for $44.9 million for next season. Now, that's a lot of money for the Rockets. So, what most speculation is, not that most speculation always happens the way that it's thought out to be, as we're learning with a lot of these stories already coming out in the NBA. But most people are expecting that, obviously, for that option to be declined, and there's mutual interest to make this thing work as far as getting a more team-friendly deal that keeps Fred around and also lowers his salary per season. Now, when we're looking at VanVleet here, there were some times during this season he did see a little bit of a decline during the season. His efficiency declined. He shot just 37.8% from the field and 34.5% from three-point range last season, lower than his career average. However, in that Game 7 and in this Golden State series where the Rockets lost in 7 games, there were some times where for some of the young players on the roster, as a coach Udoka stated, the moment seemed a little too big for them. And VanVleet was one of those guys that actually performed better. He exceeded expectations in the playoffs. And in my opinion, I think that he really played his way back onto this roster with this upcoming season. With Dillon Brooks gone, definitely, analytics and all that aside, you definitely lost some veteran leadership. You definitely lost some toughness. And as we're still, with Reed Shepherd, with Cam Whitmore, still wondering how these guys will be able to perform or step up in a bigger situation. I know a lot of people wanted Jalen Green gone. Definitely an upgrade talent-wise, despite the age with Kevin Durant. But still, that's chemistry, that's a piece in Jalen Green that's gone. And now a lot of these younger guys on the roster are going to be expected to have to step it up. And also the expectations are going to be higher. People are not going to, especially early in the season, aren't going to be looking at the Houston Rockets as just a mediocre mid-level opponent. They're definitely going to be getting more teams' best shot, going to have more, national televised games. So the expectations are definitely going to be higher. It's going to be a different situation. And Van Fleet's somebody that you want on the team. Now, wondering long-term, though, wondering what type of deal will he see here, because we have seen a little bit of a decline in his play and his production throughout the season. Definitely have to wonder, smaller guard here as far as long term. But, I mean, this is a guy that, 18.7 points per game in the series against the Warriors. He shot 43.5% from three-point range, and just an above 38% three-point shooter in the playoffs in his career. And that's over 59 playoff games. So this is definitely somebody that we want to bring back on this roster. But like anything, things have to be mutually beneficial. And even though reports are stating that a deal's probably going to be worked out, you got to wonder, there's still a possibility. Is there a possibility that Van Fleet will not be back? That's also, the Miami Heat are a team out there that could possibly have some interest in them. There's some other teams around the NBA. San Antonio Spurs possibly could have some interest in Van Fleet. So that's a possibility. And if that doesn't happen, and even if you bring Van Fleet back, which we're all expecting, I do think that there's still need to add some outside shooting to this team. Kevin Durant, that's great. That's just one guy. Likely not going to play 82. Likely going to play 82 games, even though he played about 82% of his games the last couple seasons. Still want to add some more options, some more depth is always good. And we're looking at this potential free agent market. Some different guys that the Rockets could possibly be targeting here. One big name, I don't see this happening just because I see someone else probably overpaying him, and I think that he stays in Cleveland, is going to be Ty Jerome, who had a remarkable season, was in the contention for Sixth Man of the Year, averaged 12.5 points per game. And this is a guy that the season before, he only appeared in 2 games, averaging 2 points per game in those 2 games. Shot just under 44% from 3 last season. And in the playoffs, he had some pretty bad games against the Indiana Pacers. Ultimately, the Cavs got bounced there. But still, despite those some terrible playoff games, still 11.7 points per game in the playoffs and shot just under 39% from three-point range. Ty Jerome, somebody that would definitely, I think, fit in well on this Rockets roster coming off the bench. Now, I do think, though, and Jerome's one of those guys that the Rockets had in camp a couple years ago and got waived. And this is one of those guys that went from really just being completely overlooked to now someone who's going to get a pretty solid contract. I do think, though, it's probably going to be the best fit for Ty Jerome to stay in Cleveland. Now, guys don't always go with the best fit. They go with, often the most money. But I don't think that the Rockets are going to be able to, where we are with the salary cap, going to be able to offer Jerome as much as he's going to get in Cleveland or somewhere potentially else, maybe even, the Toronto Raptors, a team like that may even he may even have more potential to start. So I don't see that happening, but another guy, too, over in Cleveland, not as versatile as Ty Jerome, but Sam Merrill, a sharpshooter there. Could be someone that I think would be a nice fit for the Rockets off the bench to add some three-point shooting. He's definitely an option. We talked about Bruce Brown on here before. Bruce Brown's somebody who's faded a little bit into oblivion with the New Orleans Pelicans right now. He's also a free agent, but only 28 years old, 6'4", 7 years in the NBA. A lot of guys may remember Bruce Brown and the nice series, strong contributor to the Denver Nuggets championship a few years ago, and then went to the Indiana Pacers. Things didn't work out so well there. Washington Wizards now with the New Orleans Pelicans, but only played 41 games last season between the Raptors and the Pelicans, and health's a concern there. And really, even the three-point shooting for Bruce Brown, not as high as some people would expect. It's really been on quite a steady decline. So how much does he really add to the roster and, health-wise? But he could be someone, especially early in the season, who could help out with some minutes as these young players are developing. I'm not really high on Bruce Brown, though, personally, just to put that out there. And another guy that talked about before, not Steph, but Seth Curry, right now over there, free agent. It's mentioned that he'd like to stay with his hometown of Charlotte. He played just less than 16 minutes a game last season and 45.6% from three in 68 games. Led the NBA in three-point shooting, 43.3% three-point shooter for his career. Now, he is 34 years old, definitely has some defensive limitations, but been around for a while, been on playoff teams, high character guy, somebody who's not going to complain, who can absolutely shoot the lights out. If he's willing to take a, team-friendly deal and we can, fit in at the mid-level, I would definitely love to see Seth Curry and not Steph. I'd love to see Steph in a Rockets jersey, but realistically, I think that Seth is somebody out there that the Rockets definitely should keep their eye on. So let me know, Sam Merrill, Ty Jerome, Bruce Brown, Curry, would you like to see any of these guys in the Houston Rockets jersey? Tell me why or why not. And also, let me know if there's any other guards, because there's a lot of other guys out there that we could go on talking about, and we will go on and talk about throughout the week until these pieces start to drop. But let me know in the comments if there's some other guys that you would like to see coming to Houston, and maybe we'll go ahead and talk about it on the show. That definitely would be appreciated. And there was definitely also last night, there was a big trade in the NBA between the Boston Celtics and the Portland Trailblazers. Not something that many people expected. I did not personally expect it, but we saw the Boston Celtics. They've got Anthony Simmons in exchange for Drew Holiday, who's going to be going to the Portland Trailblazers. And also in this deal here, so the Celtics also getting 2 second-round picks in this deal. And a little bit of an interesting move here. This definitely helps out the Boston Celtics with cap space. And I think that for Portland, because they're not really a team that's talked about too much, although, under the radar, Chauncey Billups did a really, really nice job with the Blazers last year. Had them fighting, towards the end there for a play-in spot. They were playing hard all the way until they were eliminated, and I think that's when you just look at the nature of the NBA, as well of a job as Chauncey Billups has done over there, when your team is not really relevant according to the mainstream. A lot of people aren't paying attention sometimes to the progression of that roster. So I think that the Trailblazers probably want to get into the playoffs, even for Chauncey to keep his job. Now, trust me, I don't think that Chauncey should be moved at all. I think that he's doing a great job in Portland, but that doesn't mean that, you know how the NBA is. People are excited sometimes. You build that roster 2-3 years. You get to year 4, 5, 6, and the expectations start to get a little unrealistic. They forget where they were before you got there. So I think that Holiday definitely adds a veteran leadership to this roster. You're not going to drop down defensively. And when you look at Simmons and you look at the market of Portland, somebody that they probably were going to lose in the future anyway. So it is definitely an interesting deal. Boston Celtics getting that young player that really could flourish. Simmons really may flourish and become a little bit more of a more recognizable name to people who aren't just hardcore NBA fans as he goes to Boston. So does this really have too much of an effect on the Houston Rockets? Not immediately, other than we're starting to just see some unpredictable movement going on, and as I just talked about, some potential guard options. I think that we're going to see that happen in this offseason. There's going to be some guards that aren't even being talked about going to some places that people aren't thinking about. So let me know what you think about who won that trade, even though it doesn't involve the Rockets, between the Blazers and the Boston Celtics. Big news, something to talk about it there. And one last thing that I definitely want to go ahead and touch on here. as we look at this season. And I mentioned talking about Ty Jerome, and I talked about Sam Merrill, and both of these guys are, they're guys that we're talking about, teams are talking about signing, especially right now, Ty Jerome, who had an outstanding season with Cleveland. And you see this happen so frequently in the NBA. I like the season that Scottie Pippen Jr. had with the Memphis Grizzlies, but there's so many of these guys around the NBA that you see them play in college, you see them play in the summer league. They get into the NBA, they get a few minutes early on in their career, and after about a season, teams kind of give up on them. They start to bounce around. You see them play a few games here, they play a couple games there. You see them light it up in the G League. Then they get some garbage time minutes where a lot of times teams don't even want them to shoot the ball due to unwritten rules, so their stats look terrible. But they're out there, in garbage time, and then they finally get a chance to play. They finally get a chance to shine. Next thing you know, they're getting talked about for multi-million dollar deals. And is there a guy on this Houston Rockets team that can already contribute? I know that there's a lot of young talent, but David Marotta is somebody on this roster already who I think on a two-way contract, who I think could definitely be a nice sleeper. Played at Colorado State. Averaged over 19 points per game, played for them when they ran into Michigan in the NCAA tournament that year. Now, Roddy only played 3 games for the Rockets last season. Obviously that didn't look extremely impressive in what he did there. Played about 3 games for the Philadelphia 76ers. Came into the league in 2022. He's already been with Memphis, Phoenix, Atlanta, the 76ers, as just mentioned, and now Houston. Now, last season, though, he did get to play 27 games with the Atlanta Hawks. He did shoot over 37% from three-point range and over 47% from the floor. 6'11 wingspan. He's about 6'4", 6'5", now 255 pounds. Looks more like a football player out there. Looks a little bit more like a tight end, defensive end. But somebody that, he's underrated defender. And when you look at what he's done in the G League, just under 17 points per game, and I know that purely looking at that, there's a lot of guys killing it points per game wise in the G League, but he shot 45.6% from three-point range last season, and that was on 7.5 attempts per game. No small sample size, just under 51% from the floor. And this is a tough guy, tough physical, could create some mismatches, especially when he has the ball offensively. A little bit of, I know these aren't the, a little bit of a throwback player, though. When you look at guys, 6'5", you wonder how would they look at, not comparing him to Charles Barkley, but you wonder what kind of shot would Charles Barkley have got with his game for today in these rules, just purely based off of his size. I mean, Charles Barkley, obviously one of the greatest to ever do it, but it's a blue-collar guy that can shoot the ball. And I think that if he's not dealt, I've been seeing that the Golden State Warriors have some potential interest in Roddy, but let me know what you guys think about him. I mean, this is definitely a guy that I'm looking forward to seeing. If he's not traded on draft day, wherever he goes, hopefully still with the Rockets as a 2-year deal right now. Definitely want to see what happens with him. He's somebody that's making me look forward to the summer league, as obviously the Rockets NBA draft on Wednesday. Rockets don't have any, basically have the last pick in the draft, but Roddy's definitely somebody that I'm interested in seeing in the summer league, and I think that he could have some exciting moments for this team for us next season. So let me know what you guys think about those different things that we talked about today. As far as those different free agent guard options, any free agent guards that you think could realistically come to Houston, or maybe not even realistically, because what is realistic at this point? All things are clearly possible, right? All things are possible. KD's a Houston Rocket. Luka is a Los Angeles Laker. And even though we talked about it on yesterday's episode, let us know how you feel as more time has sunk in a little bit with the Kevin Durant trade. How do you feel about it? Honestly, how do you feel about it? I think that it was a win for the Rockets on paper, but there's still definitely some adjustments that need to be made and some upgrades that need to be made on this roster. This was Rockets Daily. I'm David Delano. God bless. Let's have a great day.